how do you become an award-winning author? Where can you find awards to apply for? How do you make sure that it's an appropriate award and that's not sketchy? I have a special treat for you guys tonight. My name is April Cox, if you don't know me. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about becoming an award-winning writer. We're going to talk a little bit about what do judges look for in an award-winning book. We're going to talk a little bit about a special award that's going on right now that I have been fortunate enough that I'm actually sponsoring the award this year, along with some other great sponsors, and working really closely with Annie Mydla, who you'll meet today. First, let me just talk a little bit about our special guest today. Annie Mydla has been an assistant judge for North Street Book Prize since 2015. As a result, she has read over 5,000 self-published books and counting, with a background in literary criticism and an international publication record. Annie also brings her experience as a judge to bear in her critiques of books and manuscripts and children's picture books as part of the Winning Writers Critique Service. You can read Annie's remarks on what a Winning Writers North Street Book Prize entry is in her guest blog post and for the Alliance of Independent Authors. So please join me in welcoming Annie Mydla. Hi, Annie.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so grateful to have you here to talk about this important topic. Why don't you give us a little bit of information about your background and how you got started as a judge?
Well, my background is in literary criticism. That's what I went to college for, and that's really my passion. So it's more of like I'm coming from more of an academic book analysis angle. And in 2015, I happened to be living in Northampton, Massachusetts, and my next door neighbors were Jendy Writer and Adam Cohen. And my roommate actually introduced us. And at the time, they were looking for another judge on the self-published book contest. So they recruited me. And since then, I've just been reading all year long, like every year. And it's been a blast. I've learned so much. And this year, we actually started out with the book critique service. So I've written over 200,000 words since the beginning of January about people's self-published books and children's books. And I'm learning more than ever. And I'm getting to actually communicate with the authors a lot more too, which is wonderful. So I'm going to be able to bring all that new knowledge to bear on the North Street Book Prize Self-Published Books Contest judging this year. So I'm really excited. And thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. So before we dig into a little bit deeper to what the North Street Book Prize is, can we start a little bit general and talk about like, what are you looking for when you do critiques? What are some of the things you check with regard to whether a book is hitting all of the marks from a children's book perspective?
Definitely. Children's books are a fascinating medium because you're bringing together a lot of different elements. So that involves text, it involves pictures, it involves production in a really important way, like physical production. Are the pages too shiny? Are they too sharp on the edges? Does it have a chemical smell? I mean, there's a real physicality that comes into play. You have to think about things like font size in a different way. And that's like even before you get to the issues of composition and having a good illustrator and everything like that. So what I look for in a children's book first and foremost is that unity of all those elements. Do they complement each other? Have editorial decisions been made so that there are no kind of loose ends or just random bits that kind of poke out? Is the book strong in all of the elements and not just one or two? And this is really what separates a prize-winning book from a book that's just interesting or just pretty or just well-designed or something like that. And it's really difficult. It takes a lot of time. But, you know, when you're looking at a really top tier children's book, you get that sense that the author has put a lot of time and a lot of energy into this book. Like you get this sense of investment on the author's part. That's very obvious and, you know, really beautiful to see.
Do you find, Annie, that there are some topics that are more geared to an award-winning children's book versus others? Or are the award-winning books kind of all over with regard to the types of topics that they address?
I am constantly shocked at the books that I find the most compelling every year. At Winning Writers, we really prioritize learning about experiences that we haven't had. So oftentimes that involves, diversity, like of all kinds. And it's not just about who the authors are, it's also about like who the characters are and the experiences that they have. But at the same time, we don't have any kind of limitation on the topic or theme. We appreciate diverse voices and characters and themes, but what it really comes down to is just pure quality and that sense of unity and mastery that I was talking about. I mean, these books could come from any angle, and you just know when you come across them in the judging, there's like this magic sparkle, and I just feel this excitement when I look at a book. And I think what I'm encountering is really the passion of the author, like the passion of the author who has brought so many elements together in such a unified way.
So what about rhyming books? Do you find that there are a number of rhyming books, and do you treat them differently? Are you looking at the rhyme and the meter and that special expertise required for those particular types of books?
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes I remark that authors who choose to do rhyming books for a children's book are doing it on hard mode because it's very, very difficult to do in a seamless way. So I take my hat off to anybody who manages to accomplish that. We really, really prioritize correctness of meter. And we find generally, the thing about the Winning Writers website is that we post the judges' critiques on every one of the winners. So you can actually go on there and see what Jen, Dee, and Ellen have to say about our top prize winning children's books. And what they constantly say is, if you are writing in rhyme and there are kind of bits poking out and it's maybe not so balanced and you find yourself just fitting a few extra syllables into a line, they usually say, just do it in prose, because, you really want to create this seamless feeling, or like this feeling that your prose is invisible in a children's book, so that the writing and the pictures just merge instead of the writing kind of attracting the reader's attention and kind of breaking that sense of immersion. So yeah, if you're dedicated to doing the rhyme thing, it's really worth it to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort just making sure that it's as smooth as possible.
For the people that are here today, it's a group of self-published authors that's in like week 8 of week 12. Many of them are just getting ready. They're putting launch teams together. Their illustrations are getting towards the end. Maybe they're even in the design phase where their books are being laid out. And we touch on, how to become an award-winning author. What are the kinds of things that you need to do? So do you have any advice for them as they're finalizing their illustrations and moving through the design process that they should be considering in order to make sure that they're going to be considered for some of these awards that are coming?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially after doing all these critiques, my biggest piece of advice is, this is just a tiny piece of your journey as an author. If this is one of your first books, then keep in mind that you're going to be doing other ones. You're going to be doing a lot of other ones. And so when you're making your editorial decisions and when you're making your book promotion decisions, keep in mind the really long road ahead of you. And think to yourself, how is this going to fit into my development? And also keep in mind that every time you make a decision to put more energy into a certain element, put more time into a certain element, put more focus or research into a certain element to get it just right, that's actually repaying not just this project, but actually your future projects as well. And that is really important. And I think a lot of authors forget that. And when you're doing your book marketing, if you're entering contests or if you're trying to get ads in a certain newsletter or something like that, keep in mind, you're not just doing it for this book. You're doing it to build your brand, to build your experience, to build your contact network. And it's almost not about winning the prize. It's about the connections that you're making and the experience that you're getting for yourself. You're trying to grow yourself on a lot of different fronts at once. You're growing yourself as a marketer. You're growing yourself as a networker. You're growing yourself as an author. You're growing yourself as like a production director, because on children's books, it takes so many different elements and often a lot of different people like contributing to this project. Mm-hmm. So my advice is, don't beat yourself up. This is a learning experience. And even if you enter a contest and you don't ultimately get a cash prize or name recognition or something like that, you've become a more substantial person. You've become a more substantial author. You've become a more substantial marketer. You've made more contacts and you're actually enriched and you're actually growing. You're going to be doing this process a lot. Like even the most successful authors, even the people who win these contests, they are ceaselessly marketing. And the reason they win and the reason their books get sold and they get notoriety and they get name recognition is because they never, ever stop working to promote their work and also to create the next pieces. And they try a lot of different strategies. Yeah, what I'm saying is just don't lose track of the whole picture in this. And the more you do, the better you get at it and the more recognition that you get over time.
One of the things I always tell my authors is that before you decide to throw a bunch of money at awards, make sure that you are applying to an award that is reputable. Do you have any comments or thoughts about that and any advice here for some of the authors?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, keep in mind that there are some competitions. I mean, especially for poems and for short stories that are free. There are many, many free competitions. When you get to actual whole self-published books, it's not easy to find free competitions, but it's very easy to go online and do research about which have low fees. And it's easy to find out information about which contests are the longest lived. And, which means basically they have a good reputation in the community. The Alliance of Independent Authors, ALLI, is a really great resource for finding out which contests are really reputable. Readsy is another organization that lists very reputable contests. And there are also excellent resources out there. Like there's a website called Writer Beware, where all they do is list scams. And also on winningwriters.com, we have a whole resources section that's only devoted to helping people find out how to identify a scammy contest. The most important thing is to go on the website and look at their past winners. How many years of past winners do they have? What is their track record of paying out to authors? Do they publish in an anthology? Is that anthology available on their website or on Amazon or on another book selling website? Do they publish online? Can you read the past published pieces online? Do they have testimonials from the people who have entered and won? Yeah, all the legwork you can do is great. Also, it doesn't hurt to reach out to the organizers and note how they respond to your questions. Even if you don't actually have a question, you can just make up a question just as an excuse to get in touch. Do they respond promptly? Do they respond politely? Do they have good grammar, spelling, and punctuation in their emails? Does it all seem really professional? Is their website kind of modern and up to date? Is it maybe a bit more old fashioned, but definitely well developed? These are all things to keep in mind.
You had mentioned Alliance of Independent Authors, and they have a list of awards, and they kind of do this as a watchdog site, and they have different levels of, alert or warning or recommended. And I was just really happy to see them with green recommendations, 2 thumbs up kind of for the North Street Book Prize. So congratulations on that. I'm also a partner with Alliance of Independent Authors, and I just love that organization. So I would also recommend authors to take a look at their recommendations for the particular awards that you're considering and really just get into the details. That was really great advice, Annie. Thank you. So I would love to hear if you could just give an overview of the North Street Book Prize, which is currently taking applications now. What's involved? What does it look for? And if you want to share your slides and point to where they can go to register and to apply, that would be wonderful.
Here we have our North Street Book Prize main contest page. So basically, we have a few different prizes that you can win. Our grand prize is $8,000 this year, and that could be a book from any one of our entry categories. So we accept mainstream and literary fiction, genre fiction, creative nonfiction and memoir, poetry, children's picture book, graphic novel and memoir, and art book. Children's picture book is one of the best categories to enter into the contest because I think it has the third fewest entries overall. We usually get the most in mainstream literary fiction, genre fiction, and creative nonfiction and memoir. So children's picture book, the competition is, it's still pretty competitive, but it's not as crushing as the other categories where there are many, many talented authors entering all of these categories, but children's picture book, it's a little bit less packed. So there's going to be one grand prize winner who receives $8,000 this year, which is the biggest prize that we've ever had. And as part of that, you also get a marketing analysis with Carolyn Howard Johnson, who is an expert and has been working with authors to market their books for years. And we've had many, many satisfied winners talk to her over the years. And then we have 7 first prizes of $1,000 each. This also includes marketing consultation with Carolyn Howard Johnson. And also as a part of these, you get credit with BookBaby. You get free ads in the Winning Writers newsletter, which has over 75,000 subscribers. So that's really good publicity right there as well. And then we also have 7 honorable mentions who each get $250 each. And we publish excerpts of all of these books, and we publish judges' assessments of all of these books. So the entry fee this year is $70 per book. This is kind of on the low end of the self-published book prize spectrum. Our competitors usually have prices going into the low hundreds, and some are as much as $200 or $250. But we really strive to keep the entry fee low for accessibility reasons. It's kind of like, Winning Writers really aims to be kind of the writing contest of the people. And we don't want to be exclusive. We keep our fees, we kind of analyze every year where our competitors are, and then we take a spot like on the lower end of that spectrum. And this is Adam and Jendy's like big philosophy. And for this price of $70, you also receive many benefits, such as, you guys already are in this mastermind, but if you enter, you get a free month of mastermind with April, which is really wonderful. This is the first year that we are offering that.
Yeah, it actually works out well because these graduates of this course, usually I then encourage them to join the mastermind group. So it's a separate group that just by the fact that they are entering for the award, because I'm a sponsor, anybody that enters the North Street Book Prize, I provide that as my gift to encourage them to try out our mastermind. And you've got other sponsors that are also offering free benefits as well, right?
Yeah. And this is for everybody who enters, not just winners. So we have some really great PDFs, like C.S. Lakin is a self-publishing expert and has provided 8 simple secrets for big book sales on Amazon. The whole book, it's a PDF, and also 7 steps to plan and write your book by book launchers. And also this is it's a really solid pamphlet. It's very dense with really great concrete information. And one of our sponsors is Book Award Pro. And these people have a service that actually looks at your book and kind of cherry picks the best contests for your book to enter. So simply by entering the North Street Book Prize, you get a 3-month free subscription to Book Award Pro, and it gives you a great shot at finding the contests that are really right for your work. And of course, we also provide a PDF. Well, Carolyn Howard Johnson, this marketing expert that we work with, provides a PDF about getting great book reviews. And we also have free guides from BookBaby. So all of these things, it comes with the $70 entry fee. And just April's service and the 3-month subscription to Book Award Pro, these are together, it's worth more than $70. So we're really, really grateful to our sponsors for helping us to provide a valuable experience, even for the entrants who don't make the final rounds this year. So when we go down to the bottom of the description here, we work with Submittable to field all these subscriptions and just keep them in an orderly way so we can go through them. And there's no extra fee for using Submittable. All you pay is the $70 fee for our contest. And you can also enter a hard copy by mail if you'd like to do that. And our mailing information is here under the Submittable link if you'd like to do that. Some people digitally or by mail. There's no need to do that. One or the other is fine. Our deadline is June 30th, and the judging goes to about mid-October. And that's when I deliver the shortlist to the head judges, Jendy and Ellen, and then Jendy and Ellen heatedly debate until mid-February, which is when the winners are announced.
Is your contest all self-published authors, or is it traditional authors, or is it combination?
Yes, this is just for self-published authors. We do not accept traditional or selective hybrid publishers. You can tell, if you have paid most of all of the costs for your book, basically, you're the primary financial provider for your book, and also just making all of the major decisions about how the book is produced and edited and marketed, then this counts as a self-published book in our eyes. And when the publisher starts taking more of the financial risk and also making more of the decisions, then we say, no, this is probably a traditional or a selective hybrid publisher.
Diane's asking, are they accepting chapter books?
Oh, like for older children and young teens?
Yes.
Unfortunately not. We don't accept middle grade fiction or children's chapter books in the contest. Adult chapter books, yes, but not for children.
Marina is asking, how old can the book be to qualify for the award?
There's no limit. For some reason, especially poets tend to submit books that are quite old sometimes. Like we have books from the 1970s and, books that are submitted only in hard copy because there's literally no digital copy existing, which is amazing to get these days in our digital era. But yeah, I mean, if it's self-published, then welcome. This year we also have a video with me in it. It goes pretty in depth with the formatting and eligibility guidelines. So
wonderful. Perfect.
And also on the North Street Book Prize contest page that I just showed you, there's also a checklist above the submissions button. It's a PDF checklist. And, you can tick all the boxes just to make sure that the formatting and eligibility guidelines are met in your book.
Is there any kind of word limits? Marina's asking.
Oh, yes. So for general fiction, we have a limit of 200,000 words. For children's picture books, it's going to be between 12 and about 48 pages. Anything above 48 is getting a bit long for us. But, this is just a suggested limit. We have had amazing entries in the past that are longer than that. We don't like to limit the words in a picture book because, children's books can have a very wide range with the word density on each page.
For those that are children's book authors that are submitting, you mentioned a price for submission, but it's not per category. And there's a bunch of other categories, right? You're just submitting and you're saying you're a children's book, and that's the main category you'd be submitting into.
Yes. And if you submit in one category and the judges actually think that it's a different category, they will just switch it. Like your book would not be disqualified based on an inaccurate category. We get this sometimes with children's picture book authors submitting as poetry, which is fair enough. But if it's a picture book, then we're going to move it into the picture book category and judge it that way.
Okay.
I'm working on travel series and I wanted to know, do I submit each individual book? Is it separate unity? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one book per entry. Yes. And we often do have people submitting more than one book in a series. So yeah, we do encourage that.
Do I have to publish or can I submit before?
This is a fantastic question. We do require that all books be available to the public in some form in order to be eligible. They can be for sale or they can be for free. But the reason we have this contest is so self-published authors can sell more books. So basically, if you win and your book is not available, then, what's the point? This is why we require that they be available before entry.
I have a question. I remember last time you kind of alluded to it this time, talking about, like you said, like the feel and the look. And I remember you specifically talking about like the smell of the book and how like one time like that threw everybody off. So I don't know, in my mind, it was like, well, if you're doing like print on demand, and I mean, like what can you really do to have a high quality book? But then you just mentioned this time, like you can do just an electronic like submission. How does that work?
This is a fantastic question because again, this kind of gets back to our accessibility question. We really, really aim to be an accessible contest. And so that means that authors who don't have hard copies of their books can submit anyway. Like we don't really want to have the cost of production be a barrier to entry. So we'll accept PDFs, ebooks in MOBI and EPUB format and also iBook format we accept. And if a book makes it to the final rounds, then we do request a hard copy, but it's not mandatory to send a hard copy and it doesn't affect the judges' conclusions. We ask for a hard copy because our judges are of a generation that really likes to have a book in their hands, but they're also like, totally down with ebooks and they enjoy ebooks as well. And it doesn't impact their decisions. So, and of course, the excerpt that we publish on the website is always digital. So we're going to be needing a digital copy as well for all books that make it to the final rounds. You don't have to send a hard copy, even if your book makes it to the final rounds. You can also just say, hey, I just prefer to submit a PDF, and that's totally fine. But for print on demand, look, if you as an author aim to have a hard copy of your book available to the public, it's really, really, really worth it to shop around. And you can ask these companies for samples. Like you could ask them for one sample copy of your book, for example, or you can order one sample copy of your book. And it's just so worth it. I think a lot of authors, they feel this sense of urgency and they just want to get their own book in their hands like as soon as possible. And they want to get it on Amazon as soon as possible. And that's, I can totally understand that. But from our perspective, it's so much more worthwhile because, you want a book that really endures. You want a book that you can sell for years on end. And you want a production quality that really makes you and your readers feel good when you hold the book in your hands, when you smell the book, when you touch the pages. You don't want dust falling off it. You don't want the binding like falling apart or like pages coming out or something like that. So, if you want to push and get your book out in 1 month in hard copies, that's one thing. But, you could also take like 3 or 4 months and, send away for a bunch of samples. And I mean, I know it costs money to purchase samples. So if they're not free, then that's an issue. But if you have the extra cash lying around, it's worth it to get a physical copy in your home before deciding on which printer you're going to go with.
And when it comes to moving forward with a contest submission, I would always put my best foot forward. And that usually is my printed version, not an electronic version, especially the ones that I've had done by a digital or an offset printer. They're going to have some special embellishments on the cover. They're going to be sewn instead of just digital print on demand. So I would take that and send that forward if you've already created some of those for yourself, even in small portions, then use that as your best foot forward for any awards that you would submit for, or even to send to influencers that you are really hoping will embrace your book and help you market it.
Yeah. And keep in mind, it's not just about this book. It's about your future career as an author. Anytime you make the investment in terms of time to do that research, that's, in the bank for the future. So the next time you make a book, you won't have to do all that legwork because you already did it. And, you'll have a product that you really feel so comfortable with and so good about. And, I think contests are good because they provide motivation to get it done and get it out there. But contests are not the end goal. The end goal is a really, really, really nice book. So think about that as well. Don't do it for the judges, do it for your readers and do it for yourself. Do it for the book that you want to have on your bookshelf for your kids to take down and handle and smell and touch and draw on if they're a certain age, maybe. And, for the book that you want people to see in the bookstore, for the book that you want people to see in the library, this is not just about winning a prize and getting your name on a website, with a judge's critique and excerpt. It's about taking a part of yourself and putting it in people's hands. It's how do you want that part of yourself to really feel and look like?
So I would love to just switch gears for a moment and to hear more about your critique service that you're talking about and whether or not those that use your critique service and then later go on to apply, is that okay? Or is that an opportunity for them maybe to get some feedback on their book, correct some issues, address the things that are part of your critique, and then still move forward and apply for the award?
Yeah, definitely. I'm the one who does all the book critiques. However, if your book is critiqued by me and then entered into the contest, the other judge judges it, not me. Mm-hmm. So it's still quite fair. And they won't know that you did the critique service because I will just kind of shuffle it into their pile without them kind of getting any alert about it. So it'll just be very natural. And also I find that a lot of people who enter the North Street Book Prize, what they really want is feedback and what they really want is connection. And what they really want is insight about their book. So a lot of people enter and then they're horribly disappointed, not because they didn't win, but because they didn't get feedback. And, we get a lot of entries, so we're not able to give feedback to the people who don't make it to the top rounds. But with this critique service, you do get feedback, and you actually get more detailed feedback than the winners of the contest do. So it's a bit more expensive. It costs $90 rather than $70 for a children's picture book. And it costs $180 for like a full length, like novel or memoir or creative nonfiction book. But you get a lot for that. You get for the picture book, you get about 1,000 words. And you also get like kind of an in-person conference from 45 to 60 minutes. And, this covers every aspect of the reading experience. It's digital only, so I wouldn't be able to provide feedback on like the feel of the book or the smell of the book, like we were just talking about. But it's really good for the developmental stages when you're still weighing in your mind how all these different elements, all these different design facets are coming together, and you're making decisions like, thematic decisions, conceptual decisions, when you need to know, like which part of my book is kind of sticking out at an odd angle, like what kind of needs to be, connected together a bit better, like, where does the flow kind of break up, and where does there need to be more action? Like where, like it just is good for people who are kind of still in that middle stage of book creation. But yeah, of course, after you get this critique, of course, you can enter the contest, and it will be judged by a different judge than me.
I think it's great. And this is new this year, the critique service. That's amazing. How long does it usually take to get that critique back once it's been submitted? Are you getting really bogged down?
No, it's 4 to 6 weeks. It's 4 to 6 weeks. Usually how it goes is I look at the book, and then we schedule a Zoom call so we can have our conversation, and then I deliver a written critique after that. And you're also allowed to submit questions when you submit your critique request. So I'm reading the book like kind of just targeted to your needs. And then when we have the Zoom conference, I can get even more in depth with just kind of understanding like, what's the background of the book? Who's your intended audience? Like, what are your priorities in terms of message? Like, why have you chosen this particular illustrator? Like, what about the illustrations can really be brought out? What needs to be kind of further unified with the text? And also, just really kind of technical, specific stuff like font size, font readability, how the font goes with the illustrations, what the font says about the messages of the text, and whether there are better options. And we really try to kind of nitpick it as much as possible, but, put the author's priorities first. We don't want to be delivering information that's not going to be useful.
Now, does this critique service of yours also accept books that are not fully finished? Because I was thinking, I've got one author that I've been working with who has the storyboard, the layout of the text is there, but it's not detailed illustrations yet. But I feel like it needs an outside eye because we've got some conflicting opinions on what we should do. And it does kind of need a critique at this point. And I thought, what an amazing service that would be to be able to work with someone and get critique at that early stage that would make the difference in the finished product.
Yeah, this is really who we are aiming at. Yes, I would say generally, if you are very, very satisfied with your book, do not give it to us for a critique. If you're done, don't give it to us for a critique because it will get critiqued. It can still be useful. I find, especially for emerging authors, it can be useful because I've seen so many of these books, and I often detect that the author has started out to write one book and kind of ended up writing another book. And oftentimes with early writers, there's like a book hidden within the book where this author's true passion actually lies. And even if you submit a book that's quite far along in the process, or even if it's been self-published already or published already, like traditionally published already, it can be just useful for an author going forward for their next projects to hear about the perspective of a writing contest judge who's read so many books and has a critical background about where their strengths may be so that the next project can maximize those strengths. This all goes along with what I really see as the fundamental message here, which is what's the long-term road? What's the long-term journey? When you're getting a critique, if you come in early in the process, okay, I'm really assisting developmentally here, trying to make sure the themes are really consistent, the message is really unified, and really maximizing the strengths that exists within this manuscript. If you come along a little later in the process, it's like, okay, how do we transition this into the next project? What's really valuable here? What are your passions? How can we bring that out?
I'm already thinking about one of my manuscripts that I want to critique with you because, not every time you submit for an award or a review do you get back what you want to hear. One of my books, I did get back a Kirkus review that I thought was terrible. And I was like, they missed the whole point of the book. I was deflated for a while, but now I'm thinking, I just want to get another opinion on it because I do have the power. I'm a self-publisher. I have the power to bring that book in and do another version of it, make it better, and then re-release that book. But I don't want to hang what I do based on one bad review. I think a critique would be really helpful for me. So I will definitely be contacting you for one of my books that I have in mind.
You're not going to be getting this book is bad or this book is good. It's not about the quality of the book. I've never even gotten a bad book in the North Street Book Prize, period. We just don't get them. I mean, everybody who submits to the prize and the critique service are authors. These aren't just random people who just type a bunch of gibberish onto a keyboard and hit send. These are people who put months and months of their precious lives into this work. And so when I get a book like this, or, for the critique service, I'm looking for internal consistency. I'm looking at where does this author's natural strengths really lie? How does it come out in this particular manuscript? And how can we draw it out more in this particular manuscript and in the author's work going forward? You guys probably know Marie Kondo, right? What sparks joy here? I find that because this is my whole job. I zero in on that and then kind of take it and look for how it can just be brought out throughout the rest of the manuscript and related to all of the themes and reflected, making sure that it matches the author's priorities for the book. So I'm the one who does the book critiques for the full-length manuscripts and also children's books. And we also offer a poem, short story, and essay service. And the critiquers for that are Tracy Koretsky and Lauren Singer, both of whom are accomplished writers and poets themselves.
Thank you so very much for being here with us. It's always a pleasure having you. And I look forward to this every year we get together. Hopefully next year we'll be doing even bigger and better sponsorship as we continue to grow together.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here. I love
Annie.
Authors so much.
All right. Well, thanks again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everybody. Thank you.